Hello! Today we are going to be making some realistic trees. We're going to step up your tree game. So we're going to go from trees that look like this, no good, to trees that look like this. And I know it looks like it might be hard or overwhelming, but don't worry because actually it's pretty easy. All right, let's get started. All right, so to make our tree and make it look realistic, we're going to start with the trunk and then we're going to work our way up and then around the tree. So the first thing you're going to do is make the trunk or the base of the tree. So towards the bottom of your paper in the center or the middle, you're going to draw a line. And you don't want to make it too long because you don't want your tree to get so tall that it doesn't fit on the paper. So I'm going to make a line here for one side of the tree and a line here for the other side of the tree. And it's okay if your lines are wobbly. It's actually going to look better if they're imperfect or not, perfectly straight. All right, so that's where our tree is going to go. As the tree gets taller, the trunk gets more narrow. So these lines are getting closer together. And then at the top of the tree, it's just going to be one line because the tree starts out on the bottom it's really wide, and then as it gets closer to the top of the tree, it's going to get super thin. The same thing with the branches. So before we think about that, we're going to actually make the branches. So you're going to have branches coming out from both sides of the tree, and as those branches are getting closer to the top of the tree, the shorter they're going to be. Trees usually grow kind of like a triangle, where it's pointy at top and then it gets fuller or wider at the bottom. And the branches on the tree, they're also going to start out wide, and then those lines are going to get closer and closer together until they turn into one single line. So I'm going to go around and make those branches. The branches also get thinner at the top too. And when you're making the branches, don't think about it too hard. Just kind of go with it and make those curvy and wavy lines, as long as you're starting out wide and then getting to a point at the end. All right, off of these main branches, there's more branches. So they're going to be branching off. They're also going to be wavy. And then these can kind of go into different directions. You want to try to fill in the space here with those lines or those other branches. And some of the branches actually bend down. Okay. And you don't have to bubble them all in. You just want some thick and then some thin. Okay? And then at the tips of these branches, there's even more branches, and they're going to be really thin. So at the edges of your tree, you're just using one line. And they can overlap and go on top of one another. You're just going to try to fill in all of that space. And if you need to fill in some more branches, you can do that too, to make them wider. Because there's going to be some thick branches and then some thin branches. You have some branches sticking up at the top. It takes a little bit of time, but it's super easy. And everyone's going to be super impressed by your realistic looking tree. Okay, and if it looks a little sparse on the inside here, you can add some more branches. Okay, so now we're gonna add the bottom of the tree, the roots. So basically it's more lines that stick out. So I'm drawing a line out this way, a line out this way, and a line out this way. I'm gonna bubble it in. I'm not even worried about attaching the lines. Okay, and then I'm gonna draw the ground. Now that the branches and the roots are done, you can start adding your other details. If it was winter time and the tree was completely bare, you would stop here and start adding the texture of the bark or whatever other details you wanted to add. What I'm gonna do is I am gonna add the texture of the bark, and to do that, I'm just drawing vertical lines. Those are lines that go up and down, up my tree. And as the tree gets taller towards the top, the smoother the bark is going to get, so you'd only have to do the bottom part of your tree. Same thing with the branches. And they're just following those lines. If you want to add some circles to be where the knots are of the tree, or where those branches were that maybe got cut off or fell off, okay, you're going to add that. And the closer you put your lines together, the darker it's going to look, so it's going to give the illusion of shadow and give the tree depth. Okay. All right, now for the leaves. If you wanted a really bare tree and you just wanted to add individual leaves, you could go around and add leaves, whatever shape you wanted. What we're going to do is we're going to make big groups of leaves, because leaves usually grow in groups or clusters, and they're gonna grow around all of these branches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a spiky, kind of zigzaggy, curvy line, because you're just giving the illusion of bunches of leaves, and there are gonna be all kinds of lines and shapes in there. So you're just gonna follow the outside of these branches with that spiky, curvy line. Because when you're looking at the tree, you're not looking at all the individual leaves. You're just looking at the bunches. It'd be impossible to see every single leaf. So I'm going around all of my branches. And if it's easier, you can kind of start around one cluster and kind of work your way up around the tree, and then we'll do the inside of the tree in a minute. So when the branches go in, your zigzag line goes in. And again, it takes time, but it's super easy. If you need to take a break, take a break. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring my line all the way around the tree. So now we have the basic shape of our tree. And actually, looks like a big leaf, which is perfect, because that's what trees look like. So it's wider at the base, and then it kind of gets rounded and narrower at the top. All those lines and shapes are going to repeat. So now on the inside of my tree, I want to add more texture, so I want to add more groups of leaves. So I'm going to go through and add some more spiky lines all the way through. And you can follow the other branches that are on the inside of the tree. And the more lines you add, the more realistic it is going to look. Okay, so now I'm going to add some color. If you were leaving it black and white, you could leave it like this, but we want nice bright fall colors. So I'm going to use a light brown and a dark brown. You could also do gray for the trunk, but I think I want to use brown. Okay, so on this darker side of the tree where I have the closer lines for the texture of the bark, I'm going to use that dark brown. I'm just gonna follow the trunk. And then I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna trace my lines. I'm not gonna trace all of them, but I'm gonna try to get as many lines as I can. And it's okay if you go outside of the lines or they're not connecting perfectly, because we're gonna fill all this in with leaves. But just take your time. Great art takes time. Okay, that looks pretty good. You can always add more lines later. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the lighter brown and color this side of the tree just to make it look like there's some shadow. And you could do some of the branches with the lighter if you would like. This almost looks orange though, but that's okay. All right, perfect. Now we're gonna add the colors. And I think I wanna stick to orange and yellow, maybe a little bit of green. We'll see how it goes. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm just going around the branches, and I'm not worried about staying completely inside the lines. I'm just going around and coloring even over top of the branches. And it's okay if the colors mix a little bit. And if you want, you could go around all with one color. So I'm gonna use this kind of orangey yellow. Again, I'm not worried about filling everything in perfectly. All right, so now I'm gonna take a darker orange. So I have outlined with a lighter orange, so now I'm gonna use a darker orange for the inside of the tree. Because of course on the inside of the tree there's more shadow, so the colors are gonna be a little bit darker. You can leave some spaces white because there will be some sunlight or light going through the tree. Of course, if you want to add green or a lighter yellow, you could definitely do that too. If you need a hand break, you can stretch your fingers out and take a break. Okay. Okay, and like I said, you want to leave some parts white because there's going to be light coming through the tree. And then I'm just going to add some more zigzag lines around the tree inside of the lighter orange that we used. It's just going to give it more depth and make it look like there's leaves that are on top of other leaves and add some more shadows. And then I think I'll actually do some yellow too, mixed in there too. Perfect. And then all you really have to do is add the details around it. So I'm going to make the grass. Okay. And then if you want leaves blowing around, I'm just using my marker. And I'm just drawing random dots, kind of oval shape, around to show the leaves blowing around. They can overlap and touch. And then if they're kind of sideways or far away, you can just make little dots. More yellow. And then on the bottom around the tree, you have the leaves that already fell down. And don't worry about coloring everything in. You just want to get those leaves on the bottom there that fell on the ground. Using the same colors that we used on the inside of our tree. I'm gonna add a little red though. And then some more dark orange. There we go. Perfect. Maybe a little bit more grass. And then if you wanted to, you could take your pencil or your marker and just kind of outline some of these. Just again, to give more depth. Again, I'm not doing it perfectly, I'm just kind of going around those basic shapes. All right, so I think our tree is done. It looks much better than the other one before, the lollipop tree or the cotton candy trees. When you take your time and just follow your lines, you'll get an amazing, realistic tree. Okay, thank you so much. Have a great day.